Florida has a massive housing problem, and in today's video we're going to go over why did we even get here, what is going on, and where's the future of all these developments heading. Now, just to give you a little bit of background who I am, I'm a real estate broker, storyteller that tracks every single one of these developments that are going on in South Florida. I create short form content, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. I've been doing all these videos and tracking it, and it's crazy to see the amount of desperation and people that feel hopeless with the developments that are happening. And I get it. It's not nice to see that the home that you lived in for years, that out of nowhere a massive brand new development is coming literally right down the block. But this is the nature of the beast, and this is where we're going. But I want to give you some clarity of what is currently happening. Now, in order to understand that, we have to look at the history. Now, the past 4 years or so, we've had a massive influx of people leaving their state, whether it's California or New York, and coming to Florida in general because of the laws that we had here during the pandemic. A lot of those people were wealthy, affluent individuals that felt isolated and trapped where they were living, and they said, hey, I want to get out of here because I either have the money to do so, I can work remotely, or I'm just tired of it and I'm fed up and I want to move here. So we had a lot of people move down here, and the real estate values shot up. Prior to the pandemic, you could have bought a single family home, at least here in Miami-Dade County, between $350,000 to $500,000. Now that's not even the case. People wish they can get that. Single family homes are starting at $750,000 to over $1 million, and that's just the reality that we're in. Granted, we had a lot of different things going on in the economy. The Federal Reserve was pumping a lot of money, interest rates were at all-time low. You were having people buying and refinancing their homes and pulling 2 to 3% interest rates, and they were just buying properties left and right, and that really drove up property values to where we're at today, where it's basically unaffordable. Now, in order to address that, we have to understand where are governments in this equation. What are they currently doing? And at least here in Florida, there's a huge law that was passed called the Live Local Act. Now, the Live Local Act basically addresses affordable housing concerns. Basically, just in a nutshell, if there's areas within the location that you live or the municipality that you live in, basically if there's a commercial, a hotel, basically properties that are rezoned for different purposes, they can be quickly rezoned for affordable housing developments. And a lot of developers, knowing that, are taking advantage of these laws, and they're redeveloping all these different locations and rezoning them to build more affordable housing. And we're starting to see these developments starting to come online. Even more of these projects are being proposed, and we're seeing more of it. But we also have another layer into the problem, which I'm going to go back to the government, but the other layer is the condo market right now is suffering big time, and that's because of what happened in Surfside with the building collapse. Insurance premiums are going up, special assessments are going up, and residents who live on fixed income in these older buildings in premium locations, guess what's happening? They're no longer able to afford their condominium, so they're being bought out of their units, which is known as a condo termination or condo buyout. The developer basically goes in, they have to get more or less 80%, well actually they have to get 80% of the votes. And the reason why I said more or less is because there was a controversial one that's going on in Edgewater where the judge ruled you need 100% of votes, but that's all up in the air. That's going to be a gigantic mess, but pretty much you need 80%. So let's just put that there. So if they're able to get all those votes, they can basically sell all those units to the developer, force the hand of the residents, and basically knock it down and build premium luxury real estate on top of that land, or affordable housing, or whatever they deem fit for the development. Now, how do governments play into this? And I'm going back to what I was saying a little earlier, but when you are working for a municipality or government agency, they have their budgets established on a year-to-year basis. And when it comes to these large infrastructure projects that take a lot of time, they have to do traffic studies, surveys, they have to reach out to the community, have all these meetings to discuss what they're going to do with all this money or funds that they're collecting from the federal, state, and local level, and where they're going to allocate it for the best use and for the betterment of the community. Now, because of all these people moving down here, it threw a wrench into their original master plan, because now you have to take into account the massive increases. So if you plan to build a transit corridor that's only for buses, well, that may not work anymore. You may have to do a light rail or metro rail or something else to meet the demand, for example. And we're seeing all that happening down South Florida in the Homestead, Goulds, Naranja area, where a lot of these developments are happening. I mean, Cutler Ridge Mall is being completely redeveloped, and they're dropping $1 billion, these developers, into making a brand new live, work, play environment But how do you address all the new traffic that's going to go down US 1, which goes all the way down to Brickell? So these are things that are important that we need to address in order to plan what the future is. Now, Live Local Act throws a wrench to all this because the urban planners have their master plans. The government agencies know where they're going to put the money. But now a developer who owns pieces of land in these areas, now they can increase the density because Live Local Act also increases the density and allows for more urban housing development. Now you need to address the traffic concerns, and that's the problem that we're seeing. So the Live Local Act, it's great in what the state legislature is doing because we need that, but they rolled it out too quickly, and I know they're going back and they're fixing it and making iterations on it. But think about it, if you had already a plan set up for where you're going to build your corridor for transit, all of a sudden now you have to account for an extra 5,000 residents there with cars, with food, children, all that. It's going to be a lot to the infrastructure. It's going to be a lot of strain to the infrastructure that's there. So that's where we're currently at. These are things that we're seeing. So there's a lot of development. The issue is, can local governments evolve quickly and adapt quickly, which that's the problem with governments. It's a very slow process. It's very inefficient, and it's meant to be that way because if it's too efficient, basically you live within a communist society or dictatorship where literally one day to the next they can make a decision. When you live in democracy, there's a lot more people you need to hear. You need to take into account everybody's opinion and voice, which is amazing. But when it comes to these type of things, governments need to really collaborate and work together. It's not a red or blue issue. It's an everybody, everything issue that needs to be come together to solve this problem because it's not going to go away. These developments are coming online quickly, and a lot of them just have an idea. Once it's planned and once the review boards approve it, you can have with these developments done, if they have the financing, within 2 years, 3 years or so. And these are things that we as residents here need to be prepared for. Now, where do I see the future of real estate going in Florida specifically? It's going to have to go vertically, specifically here in Miami-Dade County, where we have a big issue. You have to the east, you have the beach. To the west, you have the Everglades, and down south, you have Homestead. And there's not enough available real estate to develop unless we start pushing the urban development line further out west, which it brings its own set of problems for the environment. And that's why we haven't seen that line get extended yet, which I do think at some point it will get extended. It may have to, but for right now, we're building vertically. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the development that's happening. Look at Wynwood, it's being completely gentrified. Little Haiti is going to be gentrified as well. And with these massive developments, you've got to take into account gentrification is also going to play into a role of this. Think about it. You're building these massive developments in the epicenter of areas that have low income individuals. Now, where are you going to house them? Because yeah, you may have millionaires and billionaires and all these affluent individuals around you, but who's going to maintain the day-to-day? And affordable housing is going to play into a role because, you know, we got to think about it. You got to house those people somewhere in order to keep the economy going and ticking. So the future of Miami is going to be vertical. Single family home development is happening, but it's happening at a snail's pace. Developers like Lennar and D.R. Horton are very smart. They're not overdeveloping like they did in 2008 and 2007 and 6. They're being very strategic with what they're doing because they don't want to be left holding the bag like they did in the past. So they're being very smart. They're developing based on need. They're not overdeveloping. They have so much backlog of demand that they're really taking their time right now because interest rates are so high with rolling out single family homes. That's why prices really haven't adjusted yet. So if you're the one creating the supply, that also means that you can dictate the demand. So you got to really think of all these different layers that are happening here. And that's the picture I want to paint to you. I want to get that big brush and just paint it so you can see where we're heading and where the future of Miami is going to go. It's going to go vertically. We're going to see these changes happening within the next 10 to 20 years. I'm just hopeful that the local officials and governments do something with the infrastructure. We need to have transit all across Miami-Dade County. I mean, cars, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, they're good. You can move around, and maybe they don't want to promote more mass transit because some pass. That's a lot of money that the state of Florida collects from that. Think about how many people go through the tolls every single day and how much revenue we generate. Miami-Dade County is basically the economic heart of Florida. We basically subsidize the rest of the state just with the amount of taxes that we generate here within our local community. It's honestly crazy, mind-boggling how much we generate in just property taxes and some pass tolls. It's just nuts. So these are things we have to take into account and really think about it as we move forward into the new iteration that Miami is going to become. So I want to leave you off with this. I don't want you to be depressed. I don't want you to be anxious. I want you to be in a position of power and understanding of where we're going as a whole. The future of Miami is bright for those that are preparing themselves for the transition. That's why it's important to reach out to local officials. That's why it's important to talk. That's why it's important to vote. It's important to have an open dialogue with those that are basically creating the future Miami. We can no longer be a society where we're just waiting idly by for somebody to come and make the decisions for us. If we don't come together as a unit and speak and address these things, it's not going to be up to us what the future is going to look like. So it's important that we get involved, that you speak, and at the end of the day, I want to make this content so you guys are more informed. Real estate is something that affects all of us. The future is very clear for those who have their eyes open. For those that don't have their eyes open, you're going to have a very tough time adjusting to the new economy, because that's the society that we're going into. And we don't have to just look, we don't even have to look here in South Florida. It's just going to be across the country as a whole. So the new skill sets that you need to adapt, very important. You need to understand that everything's evolving, nothing's going to stay the same. And the only thing I can promise you is that change is the only thing that will happen. Embrace where things are going, and the future looks brighter than ever, but you got to be aware. And if you enjoy this type of content, you got some value from it, if you have ideas, drop it down in the comments below. I love reading them. I love interacting with you guys, just so we can have an open dialogue and see where things are going. And maybe you may even give me an interesting idea or lead to follow to create another great video for you guys. But don't be depressed. Embrace where we're going. And if you enjoy this type of content, give me a follow. What are you waiting for? And have a good one. Thank you so much.